So for the next class, what we're going to do is we're going to use sentences that use the word if. An if sentence has two pieces. The first piece describes the situation. The second piece describes what happens next. So let's look at a situation. So there are three kinds of situation. The first kind of situation is a possible situation. It's possible now or in the future. Second kind of situation is an impossible situation. That's impossible now or in the future. Third kind of situation is an impossible situation in the past. Situation one, possible. And future. So here we're using if and we're using present tense. So if plus present verb. So for the situation. So I can think of a situation like, is it cold outside now? So here I think it's possible and it's not past. So this is the first situation. So I say if it is cold outside, and then I have to use present tense. If it's cold outside, and then plus future, which is usually will. If it is cold outside, I will wear a jacket. Okay, so that's the first situation we use it. And what we're doing here is we're using present tense, Control B, and we're using future, which is will. So we can see, cold is now, jacket is future. Cold is first. Jacket is second. So to make a question, I keep the same beginning. So if it is cold outside, then we can say, what will you do? So here, this is a will question. This is a will question. But this is still present tense. What will you do? So here we have to make a question. So when you want to make a question in English, we have to say, let's see. Let's see. For example, we can say, he is. And then if we want to make a question, we change it around and we say, is he. So we have like a mirror here. So we could say, are you cold? Which is verb. And then person. So are you, it's the verb and the person. But when we put it in the mirror, we can say, I am cold, which is person, verb. So we switch sides. So are you, I am. So here, this is how we make a question in English. So this is just a yes, no question. So are you cold is the question. And I am cold is the answer. So now if we want to make a longer question, we can say like, are you cold? Bring this down. You can say, are you cold? But then we can use a question word here. Question word here. What would this question word be? Well, we can say, why are you cold? We can say, when are you cold? We can say, well, I think you can see. So why are you cold? So the answer would be, I am cold. That's my son. I am cold because it is winter. Now, when are you cold? You can say, I am cold in winter. In winter. And again, you say, are you? I am. So that's how we make a good if sentence for sentence style 1. Now, situation 2. Move this down. Situation 2 is this is talking about an impossible situation. Can't happen. But this is an impossible situation now or in the future. So if I come back here, I'll bring it back up. So situation 1 is we're using 2 tenses. We're using present and then will. Now down here, if I want to say it's not possible, then I can't use present tense. So what I do is I use past tense. So past tense, and I use would, usually would. Now, before present, there's past, and before will, there's would. So this is a past version of situation one. So we're changing the tenses. So here we're going to use past tense. So let's see. If I say, if the situation is I am Chinese. Now, Mr. Gordon, no, that's impossible. I can't be Chinese. So this is not possible. Now I want to make an if sentence. So I make an if sentence. So I say if, and then I want to say past tense. So if I am, that's not correct because this is present, this is now. So I have to change it to if I were. You can also say if I was. So if I were, if I was, but here we always use this one. So if I were, if you were, if he were, if she were, if they were, we always use were with situation two. So if I were Chinese, so this is the situation. What happens next? So now we have to use would. So if I were Chinese, I would live in Beijing. Would I? No, I would live in Shanghai because it's warmer. I like warm weather. So if I were Chinese, I would live in Shanghai. Now remember, this part is first, and this part is second. So remember, an if sentence has two parts. So if I were Chinese, I would live in Shanghai. If I want to make a question, so I change it. I say, if you, again, were Chinese. Now, we've got I would live. Now we have to change this. So I would, we take this and we change it to you. Would you? So that makes it a question. Now we want to know place. So we say, where would you live? And that makes it a perfect question. Again, we're using would and we're using were. So there's only two verbs you use here. If you were Chinese, where would you live? If I were Chinese, I would live in Shanghai. But I'm not Chinese, so this is impossible. So that's situation two. And that's my 4-year-old screaming. Situation three. Give a bit more space. Situation three is talking about an impossible situation in the past. That's an impossible situation in the past. So this is what we call third conditional. Now third conditional is difficult. It's difficult because we're going from present, so we can't use present because we've already used it. And we can't use past. We use this too, so we can't use it. So we have to use what's called past perfect. It's a new tense. But we still need would. We still need would because we're using will, would, so were. So we still need would. So here we use would, but we use have. Now past perfect, what's past perfect? Past perfect is had plus what we call PP. So if you look at do, there's 3 do's. I do it, which is present tense. I did it, past tense. And past perfect is I had done it. So here, What is PP? Past participle is done. So we have to use this. So that's an example of a past participle. And here we have to use would have. And again, we have to use PP. This is quite difficult for some of you. So you have to remember that many verbs have present tense verb, past tense verb, past participle verb. So there's 3 kinds of verbs. So here we're using the past participle. So let's see. Let's take the situation. I am born in China. Very similar to situation 2. Okay, so born, so as a baby, born for me is 52 years ago. 52 years ago. So that's past. That means equals past. So this is a past idea. Because it's a past idea, I have to use if to start my sentence. Now, then I have to use if I had, because we have to use had. And then we have to use be, because is, was, been. If I had been born in China. Yes, that's lemon, that's lime. If I had been born in China. Oh, come here. Yeah, that's lime. Shaky, shaky. If I had been born in China, I would have, what would I have done? I would have learned Kung Fu. Kung Fu. I would have learned Kung Fu. But here, the truth is, what's the truth? The truth is, I was, no, I'm not opening it. Truth, I was not born in China, so I didn't learn Kung Fu. That's the truth. So here, this is not the truth, not the truth. It's an impossible idea. It's not true. Okay, so those are the 3 kinds of sentences. Let's continue on. So, give me a second. My son's making an enormous amount of noise. So, let's make a little tree. So, number 1. Is your idea possible or impossible? So, possible equals situation 1. Impossible equals situation 1 or 2. So, is your impossible idea now or past? Is it now or past? Okay, if it's now, equals situation 2. And if it's past, that's equal to situation 3. So use the 3rd kind of sentence. Okay, so let's look at some basic questions. So, let's see. If you are unhappy, so that's the situation, that's the story. If you're unhappy, make a question. So here, we're using present tense. That's present, that's now. So here, that means this is a possible thing. If you're unhappy, what will you do? That's your question. If you're unhappy, what will you do? So you want to ask your partner a question. If you're unhappy, what will you do? So your partner listens to the question and gives an answer. Answer. If I am unhappy, what will I do? I will eat chocolate and drink wine. So here, that's an example of a situation one question. Situation one. Bring it down. Situation one question. Now, situation two question, something that has to be impossible. So, question. If you were an animal, is this possible? Is this possible? No. So, past tense, were. Always use were. If you were an animal, so we can say which animal, musen, which animal would you be? Answer. If I were an animal, I would be a panda. There you go. But this is impossible. Situation three question. Remember, this has to be past. So this is often history. This is like a history question. So, question. If you had lived, so often when you use a past participle, it's just ed ending. Ed ending. So live, lived. Work, worked. Ed. Live, lived. Ed. So if you had lived, if you had lived in ancient China, if you had lived in ancient China, what job? So which job? Which one? Which job? What job would you have had? So that's actually a really difficult sentence. If you had lived, we had to use had. We had to use ed because it's impossible. So there's your verb. And here, we want you to choose something. So this is always two words, like which restaurant, which food. So we use two words for this. So this is your question word, and then we use would you. We use would you because you're making it a question. So I'll underline that. Would you? And then we've got to have. So we're going to keep doing this. So that's your verb. And then this is to show you the time. And this is to show you the action. So we've got have twice, but they're used in different ways. Okay, so that is a brief introduction to if sentences. I will post another video which will show you something that we can do tomorrow. Okay, so that's just a quick explanation of how if sentences work. That's just a quick explanation of how if sentences work.